under the night sky, full of stars, away from all the city lights and empty charms, searching for a place for something pure and true. They led me up to the narrow path to you. I'm leaving it all for the glory of your love, your name. I give you all I got to give on to that day. Take me to the cross and follow you wherever you may go. You're my all in all. I was entangled in the word, and then I found you, my treasure, precious bird. Now every kingdom, every dream, I count the cost. Compared to you, Lord, I count them all as lost. I'm leaving it all for the glory of your love, your name. I give you all I got to give on to that day. Take to the cross and follow you wherever you may go. You're my all in all. All in all. Your love is all that I want today, and I surrender all I am now for the sake of your love. To follow you wherever you may go, Lord, I surrender all. You're my all in all.
We've buried dreams, laid them deep into the earth behind us, said our goodbyes. to our souls. We won't bury our hope where he leads us to go. There's a red sea road when we can't see the way. He will part the waves, and we'll never walk alone down a red sea road. No, we'll never walk alone down a red sea road. No, we'll never walk alone down a red sea road.
More stars in the sand on the ocean, more streams than the desert could cope with, more beauty than eyes even notice, more to life than we even know yet, more love than a man could imagine, more grace than a mind could have fathomed, more dreams than have already happened. You'll do it all again. Yeah, I could find a million reasons why I call you Lord. You keep showing up with more. You keep showing up with more. You keep showing up with more. And I can't fight it, can't deny it. All that's good is yours. So I keep coming back for more. I keep coming back for more. I keep coming back for more. More light than the sun can compete with, more strength than the sum of my weakness, more power than the sum of my demons, more proof than the doubt ever needed, more light than the dark could contend with, more life than my heart had expected, more time than I get in your presence, less space between me and the heavens. I can find a million reasons why I call you Lord. You keep showing up with more. You keep showing up with more. You keep showing up with more. And I can't fight it, can't deny it. All that's good is yours. So I keep coming back for more. I keep coming back for more. I keep coming back for more. More, more. Everything I have, I give it all and I will never take that back. No reservations, 'cause my faith is in the fact that you don't ever change. God, you don't ever change. So I just can't help but praise with everything I have. I give it all and I will never take that back. No reservations, 'cause my faith is in the fact that you don't ever change. God, you don't ever change. So I just can't help but praise with it. Hello.
Check, 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 check. Hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pastor's Bible Study. Glad you are here on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Amen. Much better than last Wednesday morning. So let me start by just a little bit of housekeeping stuff, and I always want to share with those who may be brand new, either here in person as well as online, a little bit about Pastor's Bible Study. This is something we've been doing for many, many years, probably 7, 8 years. And the structure here is super simple. We just read through the Bible. So we've been in the book of Acts for quite some time, but we're definitely on the back stretch. So we are going to finish this spring, and I'm guessing we're going to have a little bit of time at the end to maybe do another book, or at least start.
I'm guessing not. I went through.
You're guessing not? Is that low confidence in me or low confidence in yourself? Okay.
I don't know. I'm predicting we're going to meet every week. But
Okay. So if you're watching online, that's Pastor Jan, and she says we're not going to make it. So I'm Pastor David. I think we will. So we'll see. I will probably be wrong. So if you are new, there's a sign-in sheet at the back. If you will share your email address, we provide updates just on everything that's going on. And if you're online, you can email that at info@fmcm.org. We have prayer request cards at the back if you'd like to share one of those. And then we also have catch boxes for us to be able to hear one another with questions and dialogue, and also for people to hear online. So we'll have people who will be happy to share those with you and move them around the room as we move to those parts of our time together. So I want to just take a few moments to reset where we are. So last fall, and some of you part of the reason I'm doing this is because we actually started Pastor's Bible Study a week earlier than many of our studies, and so you may have missed the first week that Jan did 2 weeks ago. But in the fall, we looked at Acts 16 through 21, basically Paul's second and third missionary journey. And where we left off at the end of last fall was Paul on his way to Jerusalem. And Paul is making this trip to Jerusalem, remember, primarily because, or one of the main reasons being, he is bringing to Jerusalem the offering that he has collected from all of the churches throughout the Roman world. To support the church in Jerusalem, who at that time was experiencing significant persecution. So Paul has made the trip to Jerusalem, and along the way, he is warned repeatedly by the Holy Spirit that things are going to get bad. There's going to be some pretty significant things that he's going to run into along the way. But he arrives in Jerusalem, and in fulfillment of the Spirit's warning, really from the very beginning, things do not go well for Paul. Now let's keep in mind that all throughout Paul's ministry, there's been various instances of things not going very well. Places where he stayed for a short period of time before being run out of town, places where he stayed for an extended period of time before being run out of town. But being run out of town was something that Paul was used to. It was a regular feature of his apostolic ministry wherever he was. But this one's really sharp. It's very immediate, the response that he gets when he arrives in Jerusalem. He's there for only 7 days, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, before there is a violent mob that breaks out in the temple in response to Paul and Paul's presence and Paul's teaching. The Roman soldiers, which keep in mind there was always a garrison of Roman soldiers in Jerusalem at this particular time. The governor of this area was in Caesarea, which is where we'll be very soon. But there was always a garrison of soldiers there, and their home base was actually at the corner of the Temple Mount. So the Antonia Fortress, which was built specifically for the Roman soldiers and for the ones who were housed there, and they were there to keep the peace. They were there to make sure that revolution didn't break out. They did not, as they did throughout the entire Roman Empire, they did not try to present. Here's a better way of saying this. You wouldn't have imagined that they were marching around the town all day like some oppressive force that was always there. Rome really did seek to, in the areas that they had conquered and made a part of their empire, they did seek to kind of be a little bit in the background. They worked through local officials, local leaders as puppets of Rome, but they were still present. And they could still respond to things that happened in the community. And of course, in Jerusalem, at that time, and Jerusalem still today, by the way, the place where conflict would break out, the place where conflict still breaks out at times, is at the Temple Mount. So Paul is there, a violent mob breaks out, and he's actually rescued by the Roman soldiers. And you might remember that when he's rescued, Paul's immediate response is, hold on, let me see if I can fix this. And so he responds by addressing the crowd again. Things seem to go a little bit better. Everyone tends to calm down somewhat, or at least that's what it seems to be indicated by what Luke says. He shares his testimony of being greeted on the road to Damascus by Jesus. And again, everything seems to be simmering a bit until Paul talks about being sent to the Gentiles, at which point powder keg explodes again, the crowd turns violent again, and the soldiers again have to pull him out, not necessarily because they're overwhelmingly concerned about Paul, but they're concerned about simply the mob's reaction and the idea of that type of experience happening there in the temple area. There's no way of knowing what would have happened. And so they move in to try to remove the problem. They pull him out again, but when they pull him out, the commander orders for him to be interrogated and flogged in order to figure out what in the world is going on. So we're going to look again in Acts 22, verse 25 through 29, which was from 2 weeks ago. It says this, as they stretched him out to flog him, Paul said to the centurion standing there, "Is it legal for you to flog a Roman citizen who hasn't even been found guilty?" It's interesting to me that he waits until the last minute and then says, hey, by the way, hypothetical question, is this okay? When the centurion heard this, he went to the commander and reported it. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "This man is a Roman citizen." The commander went to Paul and asked, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" "Yes, I am," Paul answered. Then the commander said, "I had to pay a lot of money for my citizenship." Paul replies, "But I was born a citizen." Those who were about to interrogate him withdrew immediately. The commander himself was alarmed when he realized that he had put Paul, a Roman citizen, in chains. So there's this initial reaction that happens on the Temple Mount. There's this violent mob. Paul has been rescued multiple times. But the soldiers, the Romans, still don't really know what's going on. They don't really understand what the conflict is. They try to get it out of Paul and then realize, oh my gosh, we had a problem. Now we have an even bigger problem because this is a Roman citizen and we responded to him in this particular way. And so what do? They call in the Sanhedrin, the religious leaders, because they're just trying to figure out what in the world is going on. What are they fighting about? Why is there such a violent response to this guy? And there's another debate that ensues between Paul and the religious leadership. If you'll remember, Paul, like Jesus did on several times, he kind of plays the religious leadership against one another, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And so now there's not only conflict between this an entire group of religious leaders and Paul, there's now conflict that's happening between those who are part of the religious leadership. And oh my gosh, what happens again? There's another violent altercation. It breaks out again, and once again, Paul is taken away by the Roman soldiers. So just for a moment, can you imagine what it must have been like for these Roman soldiers thinking, what? We don't understand what's going on. We keep having to rescue this guy. People are being violent with us while we're escorting him out. They must have been sick and tired of what is happening. But here's what happens in verse 11. This is where we ended last week, or 2 weeks ago. The following night, the Lord stood near Paul and said, "Take courage, as you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify in Rome." So things are not looking well for Paul, but he has offered this powerful word of encouragement from Jesus. As you have testified here, you will testify in Rome. So we're going to pick up at verse 12. First, any questions or comments on just that recap of where we've been? We good? Okay. The next morning, some Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. More than 40 men were involved in this plot. They went to the chief priests and the elders and said, "We have taken a solemn oath not to eat anything until we have killed Paul. Now then, you and the Sanhedrin petition the commander to bring him before you on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about his case. We are ready to kill him before he gets there." So there's a group of 40 men who take an oath with one another. To bind themselves with an oath was essentially to call down a curse upon themselves if they did not fulfill the vow that they had made. And they also conspire with the chief priests and elders to bring about their desired outcome. They are, in other words, fully committed to this. They are fully committed to killing Paul. Again, Paul is being held in the Antonia fortress. This is a structure that is a part of the Temple Mount, so he would not have far to travel. But the chief priests, the elders, they come to the Sanhedrin and they say, "Here's what we're going to do. You go to the commander and you tell him you just need more information." Now, a question to be raised at this point, which we're not going to answer at this point, is why in the world would the commander listen to the Sanhedrin? Why in the world would he accommodate their requests? So just hold that question in mind because we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We should keep in mind that Paul has managed to escape trouble again and again and again and again. In Corinth, in Philippi, in Thessalonica, in Ephesus, all of these various places, Paul is somehow able to escape trouble. But this is the worst position that he has been in throughout his entire ministry. This is the most dangerous position that he has been in. So verse 16. But when the son of Paul's sister heard of this plot, he went into the barracks and told Paul. Then Paul called one of the centurions and said, "Take this young man to the commander. He has something to tell him." So he took him to the commander. The centurion said, "Paul the prisoner sent for me and asked me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you." The commander took the young man by the hand, drew him aside, and asked, "What is it you want to tell me?" He said, "Some Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul before the Sanhedrin tomorrow on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about him. Don't give in to them, because more than 40 of them are waiting in ambush for him. They have taken an oath not to eat or drink until they have killed him. They are ready now, waiting for your consent to their request." The commander dismissed the young man with this warning: "Don't tell anyone that you have reported this to me." So once again, we have a miraculous intervention. God is fulfilling the promise that he had made to Paul in verse 11, but it's coming through the most unlikely of vessels, Paul's nephew. And it's one of those moments where we might perk up a little bit and go, Paul has a nephew? Like, we haven't heard about that before. Paul has a sister. Who was his sister? What was her name? Was this a younger sister? Was it an older sister? Did she grow up in Jerusalem? Did she grow up in Tarsus with him? All questions to which the answer is, we have no idea. We have no idea at all about Paul's family tree, but there's this one note here in the book of Acts to let us know that Paul has this wider family, this nephew who hears about this and comes to rescue him. Now, this presents a huge dilemma for the commander. He's already faced the dilemma of, okay, there's this outbreak of violence in the temple. That is not good. He was there for the specific purpose of making sure these types of things don't happen, okay? So the job description for the commander, number one on the list, is don't let this happen. Don't let violence break out. Don't let the situation devolve in such a way where you don't know which way it's going to go. Because the preservation of peace in this area was critical for the Romans and for their wider empire. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But then on top of that, he realizes that in the middle of this is a Roman citizen. And so now, okay, I've got to somehow make sure this violence we take care of this riot that's broken out. But now I have this Roman citizen, and so the responsibility that I have to keep the peace, well, now right next to it is I've got to protect this Roman citizen who is here in this area, because I can get in pretty big trouble if I don't do that as well. But he's also in being responsible for maintaining public order and preserving the peace. He also has to have a healthy, open, good relationship with the religious leadership in Jerusalem. Because the religious leadership in Jerusalem, primarily the Sanhedrin, they were the primary puppets of Rome. So are you getting a sense of how difficult this situation is for this commander? He has all of these conflicting loyalties. He doesn't quite know how to handle it. So what is he going to decide to do? Verse 23. Then he called 2 of his centurions and ordered them, "Get ready a detachment of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at 9 tonight. Provide horses for Paul so that he may be taken safely to Governor Felix." He wrote a letter as follows: Claudius Lysias to His Excellency Governor Felix. And here we have the actual letter. Greetings. This man was seized by the Jews, and they were about to kill him. But I came with my troops and rescued him, for I had learned that he is a Roman citizen. I wanted to know why they were accusing him, so I brought him to their Sanhedrin. I found that the accusation had to do with questions about their law, but there was no charge against him that deserved death or imprisonment. When I was informed of a plot to be carried out against the man, I sent him to you at once. I also ordered his accusers to present to you their case against him. So the soldiers, carrying out their orders, took Paul with them during the night and brought him as far as Antipatris. That's how I'm going to pronounce it, at least. Jan will give you the correct pronunciation in just a little bit. Antipatris, what would you say? You didn't look it up either? Okay, I forgot. The next day, they let the cavalry go on with him while they returned to the barracks. When the cavalry arrived in Caesarea, they delivered the letter to the governor and handed Paul over to him. The governor read the letter and asked what province he was from. Learning that he was from Cilicia, he said, "I will hear your case when your accusers get here." Then he ordered that Paul be kept under guard in Herod's palace. So the first thing I want to point out as we think about what's happening in this circumstance We start with 40 men who have made a pact, a vow to kill Paul. How many guys does it take to kill somebody? And the distance that he would have had to travel from the Antonia fortress to the place where he had to meet the Sanhedrin, this wasn't across town in Jerusalem. This was across the Temple Mount. This was a short distance. We can imagine this as a couple of football fields distance. And there's 40 men who sign on to this plot, as well as the religious leadership. So this is how significant a threat those opposed to Paul see him. That there's this many people involved. The commander, understanding how large a threat Paul is to the religious leadership, chooses to send half of his garrison, 200 soldiers and the cavalry, to guard Paul. How many people do you need to protect one guy? Well, evidently, you need a whole lot of soldiers to protect this guy because, keep in mind, he's a Roman citizen. If something happens to him, I'm going to be in deep, deep trouble. So they travel about 35 miles to Antropus. That's what we're going to go with, Antropus. Now, the significant thing about this area is at this point they would have come out of the hills of Judea, and they would have arrived at the coastal plain. So just in case you don't remember or you may not know, Israel is basically coastal plain, which is on the Mediterranean Sea, and then it's mountains all through the middle with one or two valleys up in the north, and then there's the Jordan River that runs on the other side. So the majority of Israel is mountainous region, not like, Colorado mountainous, but Jerusalem is where it is because it's a high point. So all throughout, you may remember the story of the Good Samaritan and how there were people who were hiding in the hills. So traveling through this area was pretty dangerous. People could hide in various areas. And so when they get to this particular area, they arrive at the coastal plain. It's obviously a much safer journey for Paul. And so what we get this note that half of the soldiers return to Jerusalem because they've got work to do in Jerusalem. They kind of escort Paul out in the middle of the night. But we see here the guards who had been ready to flog him are now the ones who are protecting him. We see the importance and the power of Roman citizenship, that they would go to such length to protect him. It's also for us an illustration. It gives us insight into the powder keg that was Jerusalem. Now, Felix, who we're about to meet, Felix was governor from 52 AD to 59 AD. So we're somewhere in that time frame. What happens in 70 AD? The destruction of the temple. So this area is incredibly important for the Romans. The Romans, what they wanted they wanted to preserve the Pax Romana, the peace of Rome. They wanted everything to stay in a way where their subjects didn't really know they were subjects, didn't really feel that. They wanted to keep the peace. But within a decade, it's going to get so bad in Jerusalem that the Romans are going to believe they have no other option than to come in and conquer all of Israel. And that's what they do. They come in, they destroy the Temple Mount. Some of you have been to Israel, and you know that still today, along the streets surrounding the Temple Mount, you can see some of the large stones that were tossed over the side or pushed over the side when the Romans sacked Jerusalem. It was a significant significant amount of destruction that took place. And not only that, some of you may know the story of Masada, which is way down south in Jerusalem, in Israel. And the Romans went all the way down to Masada to conquer just the last group of Jews who were holding out. So this is, they go from kind of wanting to be in the background to very deadly force to conquer them. And we're within a decade of that. So there's a powder keg in Jerusalem that everyone is trying to manage, which included the Romans as well as the religious leadership. Because their power and their authority came by way of Rome. So, and these are the opposing forces in this particular circumstance. So let me just pause there because that's a whole lot of stuff. And let's talk about what's happening here. Right up here, Ken's got something. Imagine being escorted by 200 soldiers. Turned into soccer there.
Let me practice.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the religious leaders are in cahoots with these guys, these 40 people who want to kill Paul. Mm-hmm. You know, it just shows the depths of hate, I guess, that they have against what he's doing and what they feel that he is a threat, you know, to everything that they believe.
Mm-hmm.
Because one commandment is thou shalt not kill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've set that one aside just for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future.
I was just thinking, you know, there's always warfare.
Mm-hmm.
As a Christian, you know, we don't come into that which is wonderful. Now, you know, we're all set. No, there's always warfare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other thoughts or questions? I love the note that when you read the scriptures, you're reading about real people living in real times and living in real places. And the New Testament is a really good example of that, because there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes that because we did not live in those times and we did not live in those places, we may not know about the various dynamics. And as crazy as the dynamics are that I've just described, there's a whole nother level that we haven't even got to in terms of the political circumstances of life in Israel at this time. Dylan?
Could you elaborate a little more on Governor Felix? I don't know if he's been mentioned yet, or if he has, I haven't paid attention to it, but just kind of his significance in this story and why they brought Paul to him.
Yes, I'm going to, is what I'll say.
I was just curious, David, you said something about it takes 40 people to go and kill Paul. I'm picturing that they're not releasing him on his own. Would you not think that there would be Roman soldiers, and would these 40 people have to fight the Roman soldiers to get to Paul? I mean, isn't that like a bad thing?
Yeah, this is
Kill
all
a
bad.
Roman?
There's nothing good here. It's all bad. And it's all bad for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, shows the extent of the threat that they saw with Paul, that they would even conspire with these 40 men, with the understanding that this could get even worse. This could be a violent conflict between with the Romans as well.
Yeah.
What else? Oh yeah, Donnie.
I don't know, I was just looking at this letter that we have to Felix.
Yes.
And was that like public knowledge? Was the letter posted somewhere? I mean, how it ends up in Scripture. It intrigues me that we have this letter.
Yeah, so the assumption is that at the trial that we're going to get to, is that those documents would have been made available, and Luke was able to copy from that letter. Anything else?
Who was
That's the commander. Yeah. Okay, well, let's look at this letter once again. Again, this guy's in a tough spot. I mean, we probably should have maybe a little bit of empathy for him. He has no idea what to do. To His Excellency Governor Felix, greetings. This man was seized by the Jews, and they were about to kill him. So, what's my first job? I know I understand my job description. I shouldn't allow these things to happen, right? And so, I came with my troops and rescued him. For I had learned that he is a Roman citizen. Now, pause right there. Is that true? No, it's not true. He doesn't find that out till later. He's not only passing the buck. I don't know if they had the phrase back then, but that's what he's doing, right? He's passing the buck. He's getting him out of Jerusalem, which is probably smart. You know, he's getting him out of the middle of everything. But he's also saying, Governor, here you go. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And he doesn't want the governor to know. He really doesn't want the governor to know that he had the guy stretched out ready to flog him and then found out that he was a Roman citizen. So he sort of changes the timeline here a little bit. Go ahead, Beth.
Paul volunteered that information. He didn't ask for his credentials.
Yes, Paul volunteered that information. The comment was Paul volunteered that information. He did not ask for his credentials. Probably because it would have not even entered this commander's mind that this guy in Jerusalem, in the middle of this religious fight that he didn't understand, that he would in fact be a Roman citizen. It shows how unique Paul was in terms of his leadership within the Jewish community and the Christian community, that he had this this citizenship.
Can you give us a little bit of history or understanding of commander, the governor, the chain of command all the way up?
Yeah, so the question was about the chain of command. So the governor was over a particular area. This is why, remember, he asks Paul where he's from, because the first thing he's trying to figure out is, do I have jurisdiction in this particular instance? Probably because he was hoping he did not have jurisdiction and he could pass it off to someone else. So the governor would have been the boss of the commander. And there would have been other areas that had Roman soldiers. We can imagine that this was probably the largest in this area because of how important Israel as a whole was. And again, if there was going to be conflict, it was going to happen there in Jerusalem.
And who does Felix report to?
Felix would report it up to the emperor. Yeah, to Caesar. Let's keep reading the letter real quick. I wanted to know why they were accusing him, so I brought him to their Sanhedrin. I found that the accusation had to do with questions about their law, but there was no charge against him that deserved death or imprisonment. Who does that remind you of? Jesus. Who said that about Jesus? Pontius Pilate. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why they're so mad at him. I don't think there's anything wrong with what's going on. So when I was informed of a plot to be carried out against the man, I sent him to you at once. I also ordered his accusers to present to you their case against him. Again, I'm completely passing the buck. I'm not only sending him to you, but I'm going to go ahead and send you his accusers as well. So good luck with this. So he sent to Felix to Dylan's question. I don't know where Dylan went. Where are you, Dylan? Right back there. Felix was governor of the area, again, from 52 to 59 AD. He was, we know from other sources, he was a former slave, and he was the brother of Paulus, who was also born a slave. Paulus found favor with the Roman emperor. And out of this favor, he is given his citizenship, and he is given a place of authority within Rome as one of the key advisors for the emperor. But he's also able to get this cush job, or this job of authority, for his brother Felix. Now here's what Felix was known for. He was known for corruption, which we can imagine that probably most Roman governors were known for their corruption, but also his general disdain for the people in the area that he oversaw. Felix was known for responding to opposition with brutal oppression. So much so that eventually, 59 AD, he is recalled to Rome because of the complaints that are made against him and the growing discontent over his leadership. Now again, why would Rome care about the growing discontent in Jerusalem? Same question we asked about the commander. Why would the commander care what the Sanhedrin said about the request that they made to the Roman garrison? Because again, there's a relationship here. There's a relationship between Rome and between the religious leadership in Jerusalem. They did not want to be out front marching through the streets, reminding people again and again every single day that they were living under occupation. They wanted people who were like them, who were a part of their own religious background, their own culture, who were, at least from first appearance, preserving their culture and preserving their religion. They wanted them to be front and center in maintaining order in the area. And so this guy is eventually recalled because of the complaints of the high priest. The high priest is the one who makes these complaints. Says, this guy isn't managing the area really well. I'm doing the best that I can, but he's not making it any easier. And the high priest had actually had the previous governor, 52 AD, he'd had the previous governor recalled to Rome because of similar things. So this guy's a former slave. This is how the Roman historian Tacitus describes him. He exercised the power of a king with the mind of a slave. So no one really thinks highly of this guy. A quick side note, there's some fulfillment of prophecy here. Acts chapter 9. You remember Ananias in Damascus, the one who is sent to Saul at the time. The Lord said to Ananias, this is verse 15, "Go, this man is my chosen instrument to proclaim my name to the Gentiles and their kings and to the people of Israel." And so we're going to see this progression. He starts, he's before the commander in the Roman garrison. Now he's before a governor. Eventually he's going to be before the next level, all the way up to Rome. So we see that being fulfilled. Any other comments or questions before we keep going? Just bring a catch box down here, because Denny's excited today. He's got, it's coming. Cerie's not going to throw it again.
This time period, starting with maybe Jesus and then Paul, is this the nucleus of the explosion that's fixing to take place in the 70?
Yes.
So this is all building up. Yeah. Ken, did you have something?
Real quick, it's funny, Felix's name means happy. What the kind of guy he is.
Did everybody hear that? The comment was, it's funny that Felix's name means happy.
David, I was just going to say, they probably remember what happened when Pontius Pilate made mistakes with the Jewish people, because he made several, starting with the banners they carried in to the city.
Right, yeah. Other comments or questions? I have this note in here later, but I'll save that for later. Anything else? Okay, let's go to the next scene. And this is the last scene we're going to look at. So we'll have hopefully have lots of time to talk at the end. 5 days later, the high priest Ananias went down to Caesarea with some of the elders and a lawyer named Tertullus, and they brought their charge against Paul before the governor. When Paul was called in, Tertullus presented his case before Felix, and he said, "We have enjoyed a long period of peace under you, and your foresight has brought about reforms in this nation. Everything, everywhere, and in every way, most excellent Felix, we acknowledge this with profound gratitude. But in order not to weary you further, I would request that you be kind enough to hear us briefly. We have found this man to be a troublemaker, stirring up riots among the Jews all over the world. He is a ringleader of the Nazarene sect and even tried to desecrate the temple. So we seized him. By examining him yourself, you will be able to learn the truth about all of these charges we are bringing against him. The other Jews joined in the accusation, asserting that these things were true. So a couple things to point out here. First being that Ananias makes this trip. So the high priest leaves Jerusalem, which is significant. Again, another indication of how important this was to the Jews to deal with Paul. And let's talk a little bit about who the high priest was. Josephus, the Jewish historian, many of you have heard of his name before. He wrote extensively about this particular period. Josephus writes about how Ananias was incredibly corrupt and was known by his greed of taking money from the temple to enrich himself and the other high priests. So he's not thought of well by the Jewish leadership. But the high priest, as I've said before, would have been the primary puppet and partner of Rome. So he not only has significant religious power because he oversees the temple. Remember, all of Jewish life centered in the temple and the temple system of sacrifice. And he oversees it all. But he also has significant political power within Israel because of the fact that he was the puppet, he was the partner of Rome. What he said not only made a big difference for the Jews living in Israel, it also made a big difference for a Roman governor all the way up to Caesar. Felix's predecessor, I already mentioned this, had been recalled because of Ananias' complaints. Rome needed him. And this is why Israel was so important at that particular time. It's also why we can say Israel is also really important today in terms of where it's located. And we don't have to throw up the map. Israel, like we said, is right on the coastline of the Mediterranean Sea. You might think of it as a land bridge, okay? It's a way for, it was a way for Rome, which we might describe as the West, to access the resources of the East. So Rome has an expanding empire. There's expansion in the West. There's not enough food in the West or wealth in the West to satisfy the hunger, the desire, the greed, if you will, of Rome. And so Rome needed these areas in order to continue to enrich itself. Egypt was critical because of the grain that was made available to Rome through that. And to get the grain to Rome, there was two ways to do it. You could obviously take a ship and bring it across the Mediterranean, which had risks involved in terms of preserving that cargo, or you could make the trip. And if you wanted to make the trip, guess where you wanted to go? You wanted to go right through Israel in order to bring it back to Rome. So this is why this is so important. This is why the high priest had such an incredible political power, because they want this area to stay under their control and their authority. So he brings a lawyer with him. We don't know if Tertullus was a Jew or a Roman, but he begins with absolutely ridiculous flattery. We can imagine that Paul and even the religious leadership, as this lawyer's beginning, and he's talking about, you are so wise. You are just the greatest leader that we have ever had. I want you to know up front, we greatly appreciate you. Whenever we think about, what a great leader is, we're thinking about you, man. I mean, you really got it going. And everybody else is thinking, I don't know, this guy. This is not what he's known for at all. He's known for almost the exact opposite. But he begins by seeking to ingratiate himself to him with this ridiculous flattery. This is how we described it in my house, or the word that my dad would use. This is baloney. It's just baloney. I guess Dad didn't like baloney when he was growing up, or still doesn't. But let's look at what the charges are. First, he's a troublemaker. He's stirring up a riot. That's bad. We don't want this to happen. It's bad. There's a political problem if there's a riot that breaks out in Jerusalem. He's a ringleader of the Nazarene sect. Now, keep in mind that there were certain religions that were permitted by Rome to exist. So it was sort of the expectation that if you were a part of the Roman Empire, that you participated in the Roman cultic religion. But there were a few that they set aside and said, this is okay, because again, they're trying to keep the peace. The Jews were one of those sects. And so by describing him as a part of a sect, he's describing him as a part of something that would have been illegal in Rome. They shouldn't even be together. He refers to him as Nazarene because obviously Jesus comes from Nazareth. So there's a political problem here. This is illegal. He's a criminal. But there's also a religious problem here. And then finally, he is a criminal. He tried to desecrate the temple. So he's a criminal from the perspective of the Jewish religious law. Now, what are they talking about? What is this desecration that they're referencing? Well, if you go back to Acts 21, this is right after Paul arrives in Jerusalem. 21 verse 27 through 30, it says this. When the 7 days were nearly over, some Jews from the province of Asia, which would have been the wider Roman world, keep that in mind, not Asia as we describe it today, saw Paul at the temple. They stirred up the whole crowd and seized him, shouting, "Fellow Israelites, help us. This is the man who teaches everyone everywhere against our people and our law in this place. And besides, he has brought Greeks into the temple and defiled this holy place." They had previously seen Trophimus the Ephesian in the city with Paul and assumed that Paul had brought him into the temple. The whole city was aroused, and the people came running from all directions. Seizing Paul, they dragged him from the temple, and immediately the gates were shut. So this is where it all began. It all started with this assumption that is made because Paul is traveling with a Greek guy, which was already a little bit suspect, and they see him and make the assumption that Paul has brought him into the temple. So there's not really any evidence that they have that Paul has done this. This is an assumption that they have made. But here's what's particularly troubling for Paul at this moment. The Romans tended to give the Jews wide latitude when it came to enforcing their own laws. They kind of tried to stay out of that as much as they could because, again, they're trying to keep the peace. Think about that scene where Pilate takes the water and he washes his hands as if to say, all right, this is your guys' deal. I don't really understand it. I don't really want to be a part of it, but this is your law that you're dealing with. So the Romans, this last accusation that they make, this is really dangerous for Paul. Because this is the point where the Romans would tend to step back. So things appear ominous. Someone had to answer for the riot that had broke out. These accusations made against Paul were why Rome was there in the first place. Everything that they have said is very troubling, would have been very troubling for Felix. Obviously was troubling for the commander since he passed the buck. But like Jesus, here's what we know. We know that Paul is innocent of all these charges. He's innocent of all these charges. Now, that being said, there's a lot of people who are innocent when things don't go well. Jesus being the number one example of that, right? Things don't end up well. Now, that's the fulfillment of prophecy, but still, Jesus was innocent and things didn't go well. So Paul, again, this is the worst predicament that he has been in. His life is really under threat. And next week, we're going to look at how Paul responds. How does Paul respond to these accusations? How does he respond to this very, very dangerous situation that he has found himself in? So we got 10 whole minutes to talk here at the end, and that's just if we stop when Jan wants us to stop. I mean, we could have more than 10. So what do you got? Jan, you want to add anything right here? You got anything? No? Do you want to add anything about the political dynamics? It's antipatus. Antipatus. That's all she has to add is a correction.
Today, when you first started reading the words of Jesus when he told Paul that he was going to have to go to Rome, you used the word will instead of must. In my Bible, it says must. Is will and must the same thing?
It was just the word that I used at the time. Yeah.
Okay.
What else? Here you go, Helen.
This is not great, but I'm just stuck on this verse here. Be of good cheer, Paul.
Be of good cheer?
Yeah, be of good cheer. Yeah, I mean, this is what's going to happen, and you're in for a big...
Yeah.
But in our private lives, we have this struggle always, you know. And the Lord has said, that's okay. I'm here with you. I've already won it.
Yeah. Down here, Sari. Oh, look at that. Watch out.
That's pretty good. Weren't you on the Pro Bowl last night? No, just a question. Is the story of Masada in the Bible somewhere?
No. But it's a pretty remarkable story if you don't know. How long did they hold out? Do you remember what the length of time was? It was a long, let's say 3 months or something. For those who don't know, Masada was it's in the area, southern part of Israel, where you have the Dead Sea, and it's almost completely flat for most of there's kind of a shelf that runs from Jerusalem area down to the Dead Sea. Some of you may have been there, and I don't even remember what year it was, where we usually are, from our hotel in Jerusalem, we come down to the Dead Sea, we visit where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then we go to Masada. And we had a light rain in Jerusalem that day. And a light rain in Jerusalem is a big problem for the area by the Dead Sea. Because it's just, there's nothing. There's no vegetation. That water just comes flying off. So we had the experience of seeing waterfalls in the desert, which was crazy. But there's pretty significant flooding that happens because of that area. But in the middle, I say all that to say, in the middle of that area, there's this massive mountaintop, kind of plateau. And Herod had built a palace for himself on top of this plateau, what we're referring to as Masada. Now, this was a ridiculous place to build a fortress. I mean, there are several engineering marvels involved in making this fortress a reality. But this is where the Jews came at the very end, thinking they could hold out, and the Romans just surrounded and waited because they didn't want any adversaries to remain. And so they eventually take the fortress, and the Jews actually committed suicide rather than face the Romans. So it's an incredible story in Israel's history. Denny's been to Masada, so he's gonna.
A couple of things about Masada is the looking off what I think was the west of the mountain. When you're on the plateau, you could see the encampments there of where the Roman soldiers were.
Yeah.
While they built the ramp to get to the top.
Oh, yeah. So I didn't even mention that. The way that they finally conquer Masada is they literally move dirt to build a ramp from, from the ground floor all the way up to Masada. And that ramp is still there. So it was longer than 3 months. It's pretty remarkable. But again, that just shows what a significant threat this was. They had to, and how important this area was to Rome.
The remarkable thing that I remember about that trip was you and our photographer.
You don't have to mention that. Yeah.
Y'all ran from the top of Masada all the way down to the bottom.
Yeah, so
where
there's
the
a
bus
cable
was.
car that takes you to the top. There's a cable car that takes you to the top. But there's also a trail that you can take to go all the way up the top. And some people walk up it. And the first time I was there, when it was 2016, so I was young and stupid, and was with our photographer who's
There is more than one way to get down.
Well, yeah, you could fall off. What do you mean?
I ran down it along with 2 other people.
Yeah, well, that's what I did the first time I was there, and that was really, really dumb. I will never, ever do that again. The cable car obviously comes back down, so you can just ride back down.
Did you have your hat on?
I had my dumb hat on, too, yes.
Just FYI, it was 2014 when you went, David.
2014? Okay, that was my first time there. So I don't know, I was younger, yeah. I was 39 or 40.
One of the marvels there was their sauna, where they had built a raised floor and had a fire in the wall and terracotta pipes going up around the room so that they could have steam baths.
Yeah, so basically Herod built a palace that included some of the best or most lavish features of the Roman life, Roman world. So the spa, the baths, what you see if you've traveled to Europe and seen any of the Roman ruins, you'll see massive areas. If you go to England, you go to Bath. Bath is named after Roman baths, and there's this huge complex. Herod took that and put it on top of a mountain. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous idea, but kind of shows you who Herod was and how he viewed his role as the first puppet, first partner with Rome to oppress the Jewish people. Charlie has something. What's that? Did Herod ever visit there? Probably didn't spend much time there. He had several palaces.
I don't think he ever came there.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you said that from the period that we're reading for the next decade, 10 years, that it was, Rome then destroyed everything. How many of the disciples survived over those 10 years?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm going to hand the microphone over to Jan. When was Paul killed? What year? He didn't make it.
No, I want to say 67, 65, 67.
So probably the only one who would have made it possibly would have been John. I think John was the last.
John lasted longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'd have to look that up. I'm not
Yeah.
going to guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and the that was really a Jewish-Roman conflict. I mean, what we see here is Christians are certainly participating in stirring things up, but the desire to overthrow Rome, I mean, that's present in the time of Jesus. So the whole first century in Israel is, again, it's a powder keg. It's just waiting for things to explode. And this is the time in which the church was born. So, I think, to Helen's comment, be of good cheer. I think if there's a real application for us, we all we all live in real places and we live in real times. And, you know, we've probably all had the experience, I know that I have, of thinking, I would rather be living in a different place or in a different time. Meaning, you know, I don't really like 2020. This is not, I don't want to do this. I remember in the the first few months of the pandemic, and by the way, one of the reasons that I talk about the pandemic on a fairly regular basis is because people don't talk about it. Have you noticed that? I mean, there is some pretty significant trauma that still, I think, exists within our culture around that, and so we don't tend to talk about that trauma, and it was, and I think we should talk more about it. But anyways, I remember, and one of the things that I read that was very, very helpful for me was one of the first things you have to do as a leader is accept that this is going to be a part of your story. You're going to have to accept that this is going to be a part of your story. And that's just one example, but there's countless examples that we each could point to in our lives and say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to live through this. I don't want this to be my reality, but this is a part of my story. And I'm either going to be faithful or unfaithful in it. Those are the only two choices. Success is faithfulness, nothing more, nothing less. And here we have Paul. You know, this is a very precarious situation. His life is in danger, and there's only one question. Paul, will you be faithful, or are you going to be unfaithful? And Paul was, well, we're going to see what happens with Paul next week. Ken, were you going to say something in a final comment? Because we've gotten over 11 o'clock, which is my goal every week, as you know, because it makes Jen nervous.
Now, just real quick, because now Paul finds himself in Herod's northern palace, Caesarea, right?
Yeah, Caesarea was the other
10
palace.
years later, they'll destroy the southern one when they do Masada.
Yeah, and in Caesarea, the only thing that's remaining of the palace, which was like a seaside palace, again, just incredible opulence where the governor lived, the only thing that remains is the floor. And there is a particular room that is thought to be where Paul was held, and you can see that there when you visit Caesarea. Okay. Dylan, you still got a mic? Why don't you go over there and get it? Dylan's going to close us in a word of prayer.
All right, let's pray. Lord, thank you for this morning. We thank you for the opportunity and the weather to gather this morning. We don't take that for granted, Lord, and to be in community together to read your word. Lord, we feel so blessed to be able to just take a peek into what was happening, over 2,000 years ago, Lord, and God, to see your faithfulness through Paul and through this story in the book of Acts. Lord, it inspires us today to know that our stories, Lord, that you are with us, that you are working through us, whatever we might be going through right now, we know that your Spirit still moves and still works. And so, Lord, would you help us to be attentive to that? Would you help us to see where you might guide us and lead us next as we leave this place? It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We've seen the glory of the Lord rise with broken lives restored, but not by governments nor fire.